And we got to be honest with the text. Unfortunately, a lot of people suffer from what's called cognitive dissonance. They'll read the text, but they don't want to give up their old belief. It could be in politics, it could be in religion. They're stuck on their ways. They can't see it. It's right in front of their face, but they cannot see it. But we're going to see clearly that Jesus had brothers. At the very minute, he had brothers. The Bible also says he had brothers and sisters. But we're going to clear it up today that Jesus had brothers, which in turn means that Mary had other children. It means that she was not a perpetual virginity. So when the Catholic Church tells you, if you don't believe in this, that you're a heretic, guess what? Then join the club. Now Jesus said, the world cannot hate you, but it hates me because. Now he's going to explain why. Why the world hates me, why the world hated Jesus, and if you're a servant and he's your master, why are they going to hate you? What did he do that caused the world to hate him? He's going to explain. The world cannot hate you, but it hates me because I testify about its works are evil. I testify about it that its works are evil. All right? So Jesus spoke out against the evil works that the world was doing. That's why the world hated him. And if you're his servant, you're not above the master. Don't be like, oh, well, I don't want to judge. I don't want to say nothing. I see evil around me, but I'm just going to be quiet. I'm just going to love on people. And I'm not going to testify or witness that their works are evil. I'm just going to be quiet. I'll be one of these nice Christians. I'll just love them to Christ. A servant is not above his master.
Hey, but I'm going to preach the word and none of that hate going to work. Hey,
Hold up.
now I don't know what you heard, but don't believe anyone that can't show you the word.
All right, John 7. Today, we're going to address in the first few verses the doctrine that the Catholics and Orthodox churches hold about the perpetual virginity of Mary. Now, some of you might be saying, oh, what's the big deal? If one church wants to believe Mary, now, what's this? First, let me define what is the perpetual virginity of Mary. It means that when Mary was here on earth, she never had any children outside of Jesus. She was a perpetual virgin. Even the birth of Jesus didn't take away her virginity. So this is what the Orthodox churches hold. But you might say, oh, what's the big deal? If they want to believe that, that's okay. And if I want to believe Mary had other children, then, what's the big deal? The problem is, if you don't understand how the Catholic Church views the perpetual virginity of Mary, you might think it's not a big deal. But to them, it's a big deal. It says this: the Catholic Church has gone further than the Orthodox, talking about Greek Orthodox, Russian Orthodox, in making the perpetual virginity one of the four main Marian dogmas. The Marian dogmas are that she went up to heaven, the Assumption, that Immaculate Conception, and I forgot the third one, and this one, the perpetual virginity. If you don't hold this is what the Catholic Church says, meaning that it is held to be a truth divinely revealed. All right, so this is not like you understand differently. It has to be divinely revealed. But look at the last part, the denial of which is heresy. So if you're a Catholic and you deny that Mary had other children besides Jesus, in their eyes, you're a heretic. In their eyes, you gotta go. You out. You're not a Catholic anymore. Okay? You have to believe this as a Catholic. But the thing is, if we go to the Bible, we're gonna stumble on some very difficult passages if you hold to that position. And we got to be honest with the text. Unfortunately, a lot of people suffer from what's called cognitive dissonance. They'll read the text, but they don't want to give up their old belief. It could be in politics, it could be in religion. They're stuck on their ways. They can't see it. It's right in front of their face, but they cannot see it. But we're going to see clearly that Jesus had brothers. At the very minute, he had brothers. The Bible also says he had brothers and sisters. But we're going to clear it up today that Jesus had brothers, which in turn means that Mary had other children. It means that she was not a perpetual virginity. So when the Catholic Church tells you, if you don't believe in this, that you're a heretic, guess what? Then join the club. Who are you going to follow? Are you going to believe the text, or are you going to believe the church? Are you going to fear the church that's going to call you a heretic, and thus you're going to be excommunicated and kicked out of the church? Or are you going to stick to the word of God and say, wait a minute, no, I'm seeing here Jesus had brothers. Okay, so let's go. Let's read John 7. But remember, we always go through we go through the Bible slowly. So there's going to be a verse that has nothing to do with it, but we'll get back to it, okay? Okay, verse 1. After this, Jesus went about in Galilee. That's where he grew up in. He would not go about in Judea because the Jews were seeking to kill him. All right, this is going to be important later on, because Jesus did not go to Judea. That's where Jerusalem is, because he was afraid the Jews are going to kill him. But in verse 2, we read this. Now the Jews' feast of booths was at hand. Okay, the feast of tabernacles. This means that this time frame will be around September. Now, give me Deuteronomy 16:16. Okay, it says this about the feast. 3 times a year, all men are to appear before the Lord, your God, in the place he will choose, which would eventually be Jerusalem. So they must appear at the Feast of Unleavened Bread, in which the Passover occurred, the Feast of Weeks, that's Pentecost, and the Feast of Tabernacles, or as is called in John 7, the Feast of Booths. The tabernacle, meaning during that week, it's a week-long feast, they sat in booths, like little huts, to commemorate how they were in Egypt, that they dwelled in booths when they were in the wilderness. Okay, but it said 3 times a year, all men are to appear before the Lord. So Jesus has to appear. Now go back. So when we read in John 7 that he would not go about in Judea because the Jews were seeking to kill him, he had a tough decision to make. He was like, wait a minute, these guys are trying to kill me over there, but God commands me to go. So, he's in a very tight situation. Verse 3, now we're going to get to, did Jesus had brothers from Mary? Or, because the way the Catholic Church and other Orthodox churches get around this, they say, oh, the brothers meant like another word for disciple. Okay? I want you to hear what his brothers said to him. It said this. So his brothers said to Jesus, leave here and go to Judea, that your disciples also may see the works that you are doing. For no one works in secret if he seeks to be known openly. If you do these things, show yourself to the world. In other words, his brothers. Okay, right now I'm just playing along. We don't know if these are his brothers' or disciple brothers. But his brothers are saying, look, why don't you go to Judea and show off? Do these miracles like some magician. Because if you are who you are, show yourself openly to the world. Why are you hiding? Why are you doing a miracle here, a miracle? Everybody's going to be there. All men are required to go to Jerusalem. This is a great opportunity for you and your disciples. First clue, his brothers didn't say the disciples, meaning they're part of it. They said let me read it again. Leave here and go to Judea, that your disciples also may see your work. So in other words, that word your means we're not part of them. They belong to you. Now, if you're trying to tell me that these brothers are disciples themselves, that's an issue. That's a kind of weird language. Why are they separating themselves from the other disciples? They're saying your disciples. But the second part is, it says in verse 5, for not even his brothers believed in him. So you tell me these are unbelieving disciples? Because we read in John 2. Give me John 2. We read this in verse 11. Jesus performed this, the first of his signs at Cana in Galilee. He did a miracle of the turning water into wine. He thus revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. Go back to John 7. It said that in verse 5, for not even his brothers believed in him. Okay, do the disciples believe and don't believe at the same time? And go back to John 2. It said after he turned water into wine, he went down to Capernaum with his mother and brothers and his disciples. All right, there's 3 categories here: mother, brothers, and his disciples. If brothers and disciples are the same, that sounds ridiculous. It's redundant. It's obvious that John, the Apostle John, is differentiating between a brother and his disciple. And furthermore, let me go back to John 7. He said that his brothers did not believe in him. The disciples believed in him, and his brothers believed in him. And his brother said, "Your disciples," meaning we're not those. That they belong to you. So this chapter right here, these verses right here, totally destroys this perpetual virginity of marriage. If you want to pull people out of Catholicism, because they have to believe this. It's not like, well, you show them in their teachings where it's required that they have to believe this, or they're a heretic. Just tell them to break this verse down. Tell them, explain this to me. Now, like I said, many people are caught up in their cognitive dissonance. They'll try to find ways, but honestly, I don't know how they could get around that Jesus had brothers, which thus means Mary was not a perpetual virgin, okay? But let's move on. Verse 6, Jesus said to them, his brothers, "My time has not yet come, but your time is always here." Okay, when Jesus said, "My time has not yet come," he's talking about his death. But your time is always here. I guess what he means here is like you're good. You don't have to worry about nothing. Your time is always, you're good. You don't have a time. My time has not yet come, but your time, you're always here. Nobody's gonna bother you. Verse 7. Now this is a very important verse. He said, "The world cannot hate you, my brothers, but it hates me because," okay, now he's going to explain why the world hates him. Because give me John 15. Because Jesus said in John 15 verse 18, "If the world hates you, understand that it hated me first. If you were of the world, it would love you as its own. Instead, the world hates you because you are not of the world, but I have chosen you out of it. Remember the word that I spoke to you. No servant is greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they will persecute you as well. If they kept my word, they will keep yours as well." Go back to John 7. Now Jesus said, "The world cannot hate you, but it hates me because." Now he's going to explain why. Why the world hates me, why the world hated Jesus. And if you're a servant and he's your master, why are they going to hate you? What did he do that caused the world to hate him? He's going to explain. "The world cannot hate you, but it hates me because I testify about its works are evil." I testify about it that its works are evil. All right? So Jesus spoke out against the evil works that the world was doing. That's why the world hated him. And if you're his servant, you're not above the master. Don't be like, "Oh, well, I don't want to judge. I don't want to say nothing. I see evil around me, but I'm just going to be quiet. I'm just going to love on people. And I'm not going to testify or witness that their works are evil. I'm just going to be quiet. I'll be one of these nice Christians. I'll just love them to Christ." A servant is not above his master, Jesus said. If the world hated me, it's going to hate you. But what's going to cause the world to hate you? Testify to the world that their works are evil. Tell them, look, what you're doing is wrong. If you tell them they're doing, and you can put it even in a nice way, guess what? They're going to hate you. And if you say you're a Christian for years and years and nobody hates you, you better check yourself. Because Jesus said they will hate you. That if you are his servant, you're not above the master. What he went through, they persecuted me, they're going to persecute you too. They're going to talk about you, they're going to slander you, they're going to reject you and all that. But you got to testify that the works thereof are evil. All these so-called Christians that everybody likes and nobody hates. I question their if they're following Jesus, because Jesus said they're going to hate you if you are his disciple. If he is your master. All right, verse 8. "You go up to the feast. I am not going up to this feast, for my time has not yet fully come." Now this is very. The thing is, by the law of Moses, he's supposed to go. He has no options but to go, And if he didn't go, guess what? He's a sinner. He broke the laws of God. For him to tell his brothers, I am not going up to this feast, for my time has not yet come. A lot of people could construe this that Jesus lied, because later on, we're going to read in a few verses, he did go. And two, he's already implying that he's not going to do it, which he did. But why would he say this to his brothers, which at first glance looks like a lie, and also violates the commandments of God? First of all, he said, I'm not going up to the feast. They wanted him to, we're going to read, scroll up. After saying this, he remained in Galilee. So he didn't go with his brothers. But, verse 10, but after his brothers had gone up to the feast, then he also went up, not publicly, but in private. See, what his brothers wanted him to do was to go and show off. Be like, here am I, the Messiah, the Son of God. Let me do these signs and wonders. Jesus didn't go up. Jesus didn't do what they wanted. He's not going up with their mindset. He's going there to do the will of God, the command of God, but he did it in secret. He didn't want to be shown and do what his brothers, the brothers advised him to do. So he went there not publicly, but in private. He still obeyed the command of God. So he wasn't thinking about breaking the commands of God. He was just saying, brothers, no, I'm not going to do I am going to go, but I'm not going to go, first of all, with you, because you have the wrong spirit. And second of all, I'm not going to do what you're going to tell me to do, that just do miracles and that's it, and everybody's going to come to me. Verse 11, the Jews were looking for him at the feast and saying, where is he? Jesus got a reputation. And some of them wanted to find him so they could kill him, because we read that earlier, that he would not go up to Judea because the Jews are trying to kill him. Verse 12, and there was much muttering about him among the people, while some said, he is a good man. Some people say, you know what, this guy is good. He's healing people. He's feeding people. He's a good man. Others said, no, he is leading the people astray. So they're saying, yeah, he might have done some good things. Yeah, you're right, but no, he's using those miracles and signs, and he's leading them astray. And there's a law in the law of Moses said that if a prophet does a sign and yet tells you to follow another God, that you should put him to death. So that's the mindset of the second group. Yet for the fear of the Jews, no one spoke openly of him. The Jew, in this sense, the Jews means the Jewish authority, because they're all Jews anyway. They feared the Jewish authority because they knew that the Jewish authority wanted to persecute Jesus and wanted to, so they didn't want to get involved. It was like, we don't want nothing to do with this Jesus business. We're just here to celebrate the feast, and, we're not going to talk openly about it, but, we'll talk amongst ourselves because, he's making waves. Verse 14. About the middle of the feast, all right, the Feast of Tabernacles is 7 days long. They're supposed to dwell in the booths for 7 days. So in the middle of the feast, which is like the third or fourth day, Jesus went up into the temple and began to teach. So now he's teaching. Now he's becoming more public. The first 3 or 4 days he was there secretly, but now he's teaching. The Jews therefore marveled, saying, how is it that this man has learning when he has never studied? They're saying how this guy got it all figured out. He never went to no theological seminary. He never was taught by some great teacher. And this is a warning to us that as Christians, don't get all caught up with titles that some preachers or ministers or ministries have, or went to Dallas seminary, and we went to this theological seminary. They were wondering, how is it that this man has learning when he has never studied? They say the same thing about Peter in the book of Acts. He's saying, I forgot how exactly they said it, but basically, they were saying, this guy's a nobody. He's a fisherman. Yeah, and here they're saying the same thing about Jesus. Because you know what? It's not about the school you went to. Is if God taught you. That's the most important thing. We're going to read that. Jesus said earlier that you will be taught of God. He was taught of God. Those that are learned, true disciples of Jesus, and he's going to explain it. That those that are of, that are of God, they're going They're going to be taught of God. So now Jesus responds to that question. Who are you? You didn't go to Gamaliel. You didn't study at the feet of Gamaliel. You're just some carpenter from Galilee, and you're teaching in the middle of the temple. It says Jesus went up in the temple and began teaching in the middle of the feast. So Jesus answered them, my teaching is not mine, but his who sent me. Right? So he's saying, look, I'm not coming up with some new teaching. God himself, the Father, has given me this knowledge. If anyone, now this is the thing. This is the most important thing. How you know who's a true teacher of God. If anyone's will is to do God's will, he will know whether teaching is from God or whether I am speaking on my own authority. So the way you know somebody is a teacher of God, true teacher of God, is are they doing the will of God? It's not how many PhDs they have, how many seminaries they attended. Are they doing the will of God? Are they disciplining their children, loving their wives? Are they keeping God's law? Not a drunkard, not a fornicator, not a proud, boastful, blasphemer. If he's doing the will of God, Jesus said, if anyone's will is to do God's will, he will know. You will know. You'll be like, this guy, he's teaching God's. I know he's a teacher of God because I'm doing the will of God and he's doing the will of God. He will know whether the teaching is from God or whether I'm speaking on my own authority. They will know if a teacher is speaking, is a person of God, or they're just, freelancing, they're freestyling, and they're saying they're of God, but they're teaching. But that's a person that does the will of God. I notice that people that do the will of God, they're quick to recognize, oh, Joel Osteen, he's not a teacher of God. He's not a real, or Kenneth Copeland, he's not a real teacher of God. Those that are doing the will of God, they know those guys are frauds. Those that are not doing the will of God, they follow them. That's what I notice, All right, let's see, 18. The one who speaks on his own authority seeks his own glory. So the one who speaks on his own authority, they say they represent God, but they're not representing God. They're seeking their own glory. They want their own mansion, their own, look at me, look how wonderful I am. Oh, they'll say they'll pay lip service to praise God, but really it's about them. Their ministry is named after them. They seek their own glory. But the one who seeks the glory of him who sent him is true, and in him there is no falsehood. So the one who seeks the glory of him who sent him is true. So if you're seeking the glory from God, you don't care. You're not about numbers or names or mansions. The one who seeks the glory of him who sent him is true, and in him there is no falsehood. They keep it real. They don't care. They're not there to please you. They'll just tell you as it is. They'll be gracious and kind and gentle but they'll tell you like it is. They're not there to have you there so you could, pat you on the head and say, oh, I got this many disciples. They'll tell you like it is. And many times, like we read last chapter, the great crowd will leave. There is no falsehood in them, because they're not speaking on authority and they're not seeking their own glory. 19. Has not Moses given you the law? Yet none of you keeps the law. And this is why he's saying they don't keep the law. Why do you seek to kill me? Jesus knew that they were out there to hunt him down. And yet they say they keep God's law, but they wanted to kill him. Verse 20, the crowd answered, you have a demon. Who is seeking to kill you? Now, mind you, in the crowd, there are mixed Jews there. There's some that don't even know what's going on, but there are many that wanted to kill Jesus. Jesus answered them, I did one work and you all marvel. Okay, what he's talking about here is the man at the pool, the healing, the lame man that was lame for 38 years. I did one work and you all marvel. You're all amazed. 22, Moses gave you circumcision that it is from Moses, but from the fathers. So Jesus said, first he said, Moses gave you circumcision, and then he corrected himself saying, you know what? Circumcision was going on before Moses. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they were circumcised and all. And you circumcise a man on the Sabbath. All right, so if a child is born and the 8th day they're supposed to get circumcised, and it happened to be on a Sabbath, they had to circumcise the child. That's a work. 23, if on the Sabbath a man receives circumcision so that the law of Moses may not be broken, are you angry with me because on the Sabbath I made a man's whole body well? Remember, when he healed the guy in the pool, it was on a Sabbath. It was not on any other day. That was their issue, that he healed on the Sabbath. And they're upset at him. And Jesus like, wait, this guy was lame for 38 years, and now you're angry at me? But yet people are cutting off foreskins of babies every Sabbath, and you don't have an issue. But this guy, he was paralyzed for 38 years, and you're angry at me? I made you because I made him well? 24, do not judge by appearance, but judge with right judgment. All right? He said, look, don't get caught up by technicalities. Use your brain and say, you know what? Is this a right thing to do? Somebody got healed. Yeah, it was on a Sabbath day, but is it okay? You know, if the man is jumping, rejoicing, and delivered from his paralytic state, is that a right thing, or is that of the devil? Use your brain. You don't even need the law of Moses to figure out, wait a minute, this gotta be of God. But they judge by outward appearance, like you technically broke the Sabbath. All right, 25. We'll stop at 28, 27. Some of the people in Jerusalem said, is not this the man whom they seek to kill? So they knew, the rumors are going about. They were hunting down Jesus. This is the guy. Finally, he was there for 4 days in secret. Now we know it is him. And here he is speaking openly, and they say nothing to him. So they're shocked. They're like, they're trying to kill him, and look, he's like up here, and nobody's doing nothing about it. They just saying whatever he wants. Can it be that authorities really know that this is the Christ? So now these people are like, wait a minute, since they're not doing nothing to him, I guess they might know that he is the Messiah. That was their view. Okay, now listen to verse 27, because let me read it and then I'll explain. But we know where this man comes from. They knew that he came, or they suppose that he came from Galilee. But because we're going to read, I'm going to show you in verse 42. But we know where this man comes from. And when the Christ appears, no one will know where he comes from. Right? So they had a misunderstanding. These Jews had a misunderstanding, and they thought that when the Messiah comes, that he was just going to appear from the sky. So, but the thing is, scroll down to verse 42. Because there was some other Jews that said, has not the scripture said that Christ comes from the offspring of David and comes from Bethlehem, the village where David was? So now go up. So there were some that said that he comes from the village of Bethlehem, but here it said that when he comes, no man knows where he comes from. So the Jews had a confusion, which leads me to this. Look, there's a lot of statements in the book of John that the Jews said that just because they said it doesn't mean that that's what the Bible teaches. For example, it said that the Jews said that no man can forgive sins but God alone. So a lot of people say, see, that's the Jews understood. So that means Jesus is God. But the thing is, God can forgive sins. Jesus can forgive sins. Jesus gave the authority to the apostles to forgive sins. The seraphim forgave sins. When Isaiah touched the coals, they said, your sins are forgiven you. So there's more than one entity, being that could forgive sins. But the Jews in their doctrine thought that only God could forgive sins. When all is said and done, God does forgive sins, but God sometimes uses other instruments so that he could forgive sins also. And here, again, the Jews said in verse 27, but we know where this man comes from, and when the Christ appears, no man will know where he comes from. That's false, because they contradict themselves. They said that the Messiah would come from Bethlehem. So we got to be careful not to take these verses where the Jews said something and say, see, that's what the Bible teaches. No, that's what they believed. Okay, we got to let the whole Bible speak for itself. So we'll end there. But I just want to get you to understand the first few verses about Jesus did have brothers, okay? We got to get that in our minds. There's people stuck in a cult called Catholicism. That's what it is. Because to me, a cult is you show somebody something and they still hold on to it. You know, unfortunately, there's many that don't know this, that Jesus had brothers. But there are some that do know, and they'll fight the word. They'll fight the plain reading because they're in a cult. They're not going to get out of it. But we want to make sure that we understand. So if we ever encounter someone that's in Catholicism, we could open up John 7 and say, look, right there, what are you talking about? And also, I want the rest of the chapter, it talks about Jesus attending this feast. Notice that Jesus was very obedient in the feast. I noticed that in the book of John, every time there's a new story, it always starts with a Jesus attending a feast. You know, we read last chapter, Jesus, when he walked on water and fed the 5,000, he was there to be there for the Passover. Now, this is September. He's there to keep the Feast of Tabernacles, the Feast of Booths. So I noticed that all these events that happened around the time when the feast happened because Jesus had to go to Jerusalem. You know, and when he went to the temple, he had to go. But notice, there were people there trying to kill him. And he didn't want to go to Jerusalem. He didn't want to go. We're going to read later on in John 10, he went to Jerusalem for the Feast of Dedication. And when we get there, we'll get there. But notice, he did not go there unless he had to. He didn't go to Judea because he just wanted to heal everybody. No, he had enough reason with himself. So you know what? That's a hot spot for me. You know, that's like going through, if you were in a gang war and you are blood and Crip and you realize that's the blood neighborhood. I'm not going through there unless my mom lives there and I want to wish her happy Mom's Day. That's the only time I go there. You will not just randomly just show up. Jesus only showed up there in Judea because he had to keep the feast. If it wasn't for that, he would not be there. Okay? So we'll end there. Anybody have a question, comment, concern? No? Observation? All right.